Estamos iniciando mais um programa Entre Amigos Conversando com o Mundo e hoje nós estamos aqui na embaixada da Croácia e vamos entrevistar o embaixador Ranko Vilovic. A Croácia é um país que eu tive a oportunidade de conhecer faz mais ou menos uns 5 anos e fiquei muito encantado pela beleza do país, né? É um país que fica do outro lado da Itália, no Mar Adriático, né? Mas ele beira o Mar Adriático e tem uma variedade em termos naturais e geográficos muito interessante. Então nós vamos conversar um pouco sobre diversos aspectos, né, da cultura, da história, das tecnologias que nasceram na Croácia. So it's a pleasure to be here with you and to talk about Croatia, such a beautiful country. I was saying that I have been in Croatia and I was very well impressed with the beauty of your country, all the natural beauties that you have, the mountains, the history, the natural parks. So I would like you to talk a bit about, your history, so that people in Brazil can understand a bit better how Croatia was born. I know it was part of Yugoslavia, but perhaps you can give us a better notion of your history.
So thank you for having me in your TV, and thank you for kind introductory words about Croatia. Yes, indeed, it is the country that gained independence only in 1991. But you must know that it is a very old country. We had our history, we had our state already in the Middle Ages, in the 8th century, recognized by international factors, by international community, by other states, and we lost our independence in the beginning of 12th century. And since then, we were always in some kind of states that where we preserved our identity, but we never had independent state until 1991.
It's interesting that you, in spite of all the invasions that you had throughout history, you preserved your culture, and this is very valuable.
Exactly because of that. If you don't have your state, but you do have your identity, what preserves you? What keeps your identity? Yes. It's language, it's culture.
Exactly. And during many years you were part of Yugoslavia, and it was a difficult time, right? Because you had a strong regime. And could you talk a little about it?
Yes. It was the first Yugoslavia was created after the World War I. Big part due to the will of the big powers. Mm-hmm. The second Yugoslavia was created after or during the World War II. So every time that we were in this multinational state, it was due to the historic circumstances. And it was always war circumstances. It was always circumstances that were not normal, regular process.
Yeah, well, you had different nations that were ruled by a strong power, yeah. And it was not something natural, this bond, right?
Yes, the first one was under the domination of the Serbian king. The second one was a one-party political system, not a democratic state as we know now. Uh-huh. So it was always very, very specific.
And was it difficult to get independence?
It was difficult. When it was clear that Yugoslavia is dissoluting, there were various ideas how to solve it, starting from the loose confederation. When it didn't work, the republics declared their independence. Croatia one among them, Slovenia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Macedonia. And then we had the aggression and the war and imposed war on our territory. We defended and
You were invaded by the Serbians, right?
by the Federal Army, which in fact became Serbian army in that time exclusively. And we managed to fight back, to liberate our territory with big victims, with big devastation, but we made it.
It's
We wished we could do it in a peaceful and normal way, but we were not the one to be asked.
It's quite a transition from this difficult time that you went through to what you are now, part of European Union.
Exactly.
And right now you are presiding the European Union. So it's quite a change that you went through.
Exactly. That is fascinating. It's only 25 years since the end of the war. And then we had this one part of the territory that we got back through the diplomacy, through the negotiations in some years later. So it's 20 and some years since all these events. What did we achieve? Not only recognition of the independence, we got it in 92 already by the most of the countries.
Brazil was one of the first to recognize.
One of among the first, and we never forget it. We appreciate it even nowadays very much. We became members of all relevant international organizations. United Nations already 92, OSCE 92, then Council of Europe 96. And then what is extremely important, NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization in 2009, and finally, as the crown of all of it, European Union in 2013. So it's almost already almost 7 years. And currently, these 6 months, we are presiding the Council of the European Union. It is a big achievement. Okay, you may say it's a rotation scheme, but being there, presiding, promoting the country, showing that you are capable and able to run all that business. And only 25 years ago, we were occupied, we had war.
Yes. It's a very big transition.
We complain about all kinds of everything. That's part of not only Croatian, but the mentality in this part of Europe.
Human nature. Yes.
And exactly, it's in the human nature. Yeah. But listen, 25 years later, you are not only the member with all the benefits of membership in the European Union, but you are presiding. Could you have imagined then?
Yes, very interesting. But you have a long history, much before all these wars that you were mentioning. And you have a very nice medieval city that's one of the most preserved cities in the world, in the south of your country.
Yes.
Yes. And could you talk about it?
Yes. Long history, which is reflected in old cities. Historically, Croatia has 3 parts. The flat part, which is typical Central European, in the north and northwest. The range of the mountains in between, where you have the different climate, different gastronomy.
Yes.
And then you have coast, the Mediterranean.
The middle is Dalmatia, right?
Dalmatia and Istria, and we call it Primorje, the northern part, with over 1,200, we cannot count them all, islands, beautiful islands. Many of them are inhabited.
Yeah, I can speak about, they are really beautiful, yeah.
Perfect for tourism.
Yes.
And by the way, most of the Croats that live here in Brazil come from those islands.
Oh, yeah.
And as a pearl of those old cities, Dubrovnik, the old medieval cities, you have visited it. I think
it's very impressive. You feel like you're going back in time because everything's like it was many centuries ago.
Exactly.
I know it went through many changes, and you had a big fire. It destroyed.
Had a big fire in 1667, but what is interesting, it's not only architecture of Dubrovnik, which is planified city, beautiful city, but the history.
Yeah.
It was always an independent state.
It was built in the 7th century, right?
Initially it was built in 7th century, then it was part of Byzantium Empire until 1205, I think. And then it gained independence in the 14th century, and this independence was recognized by big powers that surrounded it. And it gained independence until Napoleon invaded the city 1808. But even after the Vienna Congress 1815, it had a special status. But it had the statute of the city with some regulations that were extremely progressive and modern at that time. The structure of the governing of the city.
And you were telling me before we started the conversation that was the first country to abolish slavery.
Slavery in 1416. So much
before Brazil was discovered.
Brazil was discovered,
yes.
Established. Yes, at that time it was extremely progressive. It was the first state to recognize the independence of the United States of America in 1783, before any other state, before France, before anybody else. Mm-hmm. And the social solutions, including how to deal with the poverty, how to deal with the ruling of the city, it was extremely modern. The roots of the modern diplomacy are in Dubrovnik.
Wow.
I can talk very much about it. For example, you have the oldest in continuo operating pharmacy in the world, in Dubrovnik, in the same building, starting in 1317. So early 14th century.
Alive. Yeah.
It's still there. It is still there, operating on a daily basis.
Wow.
By the way, the second oldest is in Zagreb, 1355, in the same building, and it was run by the great-grandson of Dante Alighieri. So we have really long history.
Yeah.
Not to forget that the second biggest city in Croatia, Split, was built, in fact, within the castle of the Roman Empire Diocletianus. So the whole city is in the old Roman castle.
It's a lot of history.
That's history.
Yes.
That's history.
Well, we're going to have to do a small interval. Então vamos dar um pequeno intervalo agora e já voltamos com essa fascinante conversa sobre história, cultura e tudo que esse país maravilhoso que é a Croácia tem nos oferecido, né, em termos culturais, e realmente é algo fascinante. Fiquem conosco, até daqui a pouco. Estamos de volta com o nosso programa Entre Amigos, Conversando com o Mundo. Hoje nós estamos aqui na Embaixada da Croácia e estamos conversando sobre esse país maravilhoso que eu visitei já uma vez, que tem atrativos turísticos tão fantásticos, né? A gente estava conversando que uma das atrações, assim, uma das curiosidades mais interessantes you have the smallest city in the world. It was registered as a city with only 19 people, right?
Yes, I think now they have officially 30 people, Aga Umi, in Istria, and it's officially the smallest city in the world. It has a status and the structure of the city since 11th century. So officially we operate that it's the smallest city in the world nowadays.
It's interesting to have a city that has not grown much, because from 11 to, you have now 30 people, right?
Yeah, it had ups and downs, but now it's 30.
Yeah, it's very interesting. But still, preserves the culture and everything.
In continuous,
very
for 1,000 years.
But I would like to go to the present times, contemporary Croatia, and I would like to talk about the technology that you have been developing. I know that you have several geniuses that were born there, like Nikola Tesla, and now you have another genius that has one of the best electric cars in the world.
Yes.
It's one of the fastest. No?
Yes.
Could you talk about it a little?
Yes, we are proud that as a small country, small nation, we really contributed to the world history with many, many big people and big inventions. Of course, we are all proud of Nikola Tesla, one of the biggest geniuses in history of the world, who was born in Croatia, raised in Croatia. His father was of the Serbian origin, but Nikola Tesla himself always used to say, "I'm equally proud on my Serbian parents and Croatian homeland." He couldn't put it better. So he studied in Austria at that time, Austro-Hungarian monarchy, went to America and invented a lot of things without which everyday life wouldn't be imaginable today, including alternative electric current.
Yes, no, people still don't understand exactly some of his discoveries, like some kinds of a new type of energy that was supposed to be almost free, but somehow people could not understand and use it properly, right?
Right. Electric lightning rod, for example, when you have storm, tempest, and you're afraid of the lightning, it killed so many people in the history. He invented this rod, so houses are safe after that. Nowadays, we have a brilliant young man who runs his own factory at the outskirts of Zagreb, Mate Rimac. As you mentioned, he produces the fastest electric cars in the world. And it's his know-how, his technology, and we always like to promote him because he really does great job. Rimac cars and electric cars, I think, are the cars of the future one way or another.
Yes, and you have a lot of startups that have been developing very nice and very up-to-date and innovative technologies, right?
Yes, that's true. We have brilliant young people. We have good schools, particularly electrotechnics and similar STEM programs. And these young people are really, they think in a different way than your or my generation, sorry to say it that way. They really, their brain works in a different mode. Yes. And they start their startups, they start their small businesses online. They start it in a different manners, and it really works fine.
Yes, very interesting. And I think when you have technology, the future is guaranteed because nowadays technology is running the world.
And there was always a tradition of inventions. Yes. For example, something that you use daily. Is created by Slavoljub Penkala, the guy from Croatia.
Wow.
Torpedo was created by Ivan Vučić Lupis, a Croatian engineer.
And cravat.
And
right?
cravat also.
Nossa gravata.
In Portuguese you say gravata.
Yeah.
In Croatian it's cravata. And the fact is that in 17th century, Croatian cavalry was hired by a French king in the 30 years, during the 30 Years' War. And then they had some kind of scarves around their neck. The scarves were given by their wives, girlfriends, fiancés, as a kind of promise, we'll be waiting for each other. But it was also the sign of recognition, because you could easily recognize who belongs to which regiment.
By the collar.
It was usually red collar. So, but it was, they put it in a such way that they could fight with it. So they didn't have problems. But then it became so popular, including to the French court, and they said it is a scarf tied à la Croate. In a Croatian manner.
Very interesting.
And à la Croate became cravat. And that's the tradition that started, that stems from there. So we are proud that we think we invented it in the modern sense of ties. And it was worn by the King Louis XIV himself.
Wow.
As a practical and nice, at the same time, part of the dress.
Now, let's talk about tourism, because I know that your country is one of the most beautiful countries I have ever visited.
Thank you.
And you have such a multiplicity, a diversity of landscapes that it's not a big country, but when you go from north to south, you see so many different things in the mountains and beautiful parks, beautiful beaches. So it's very amazing.
Exactly. Tourism is very important for us, not only in the financial sense it contributes around 19% to our GDP, but it is really something that we are very proud of. As you said, we have a so different landscape. Let me give some comparison. Brazil is the 5th country concerning the territory in the world. Croatia is 126th or 27th, I'm not sure. Brazil has 212 million people, also 5th in the world. Croatia has 4 million. Now imagine on one Croat there are 50 Brazilians. Try to imagine this comparison. And then you travel in Brazil for days and you see you hear the same language, there are differences, but you are still in the same country. Yes. In Croatia, it takes you just a couple of hours to come from one part of the country to the other. We have an excellent network of highways, yes. So it's easy to move and to travel, but you have 3 different regions.
Right.
The flat with its traditions, typical Central European food, booze, whatever, cities, architecture, and then you have Mediterranean, typical Mediterranean heritage, perfect for tourism, and the range of the mountains, so beautiful in between. But tourism is, sorry to interrupt, yes. is important historically. You know why? Because it's the way of life. It's the way that our people were always, including through tourism, connected with the whole world. We were always open society. The people were always open, communicated with foreigners in a very friendly, in a very positive manner, speaking languages due to that, understanding other languages, other cultures. So tourism brought us in history, we were never closed.
Yes.
It always brought us progress.
Exactly. I found it very easy to communicate anywhere in the country. Most people speak English, and so it's quite easy, the communication. When you cross the frontier to Macedonia, it's totally different. No? So,
different history, different patterns.
Yes.
So this feeling being included in the everyday world, in spite of the political systems we experience in the past.
Yes.
That makes a difference.
And one thing I noticed that I was very pleased is that people in Croatia like open air activity.
Oh, yes.
And yes. When I arrived in Zagreb, the capital of Croatia, I was trying to see what I was going to do, and I found out that I could see the city, make a city tour by bike.
By bike.
It's a bike tour. So I did this bike tour, and it was beautiful. It was much better than in a bus, for instance, because you see much better. And the guide was conducting the group by bike also. I thought it was fantastic. It was the first time I did something like this.
Yes, that's true. People like open-air activities. The climate is good, is moderate. Okay, we don't have such a warm climate like Brazil, 12 months a year, but still it's a moderate climate, you can enjoy it. Zagreb is a beautiful, very green city with a lot of parks, a lot of possibilities for the activities, great history, and the people who really enjoy it and love it. And there are a lot of activities, concerts, whatever. And
between, on the way from Zagreb to the coast, you have a beautiful park, Plitvice. It's fantastic.
Small Croatia. Relatively small Croatia has 8 national parks and 11 parks of nature, where also
This one especially is so beautiful, isn't it?
Plitvice is absolutely...
waterfalls and all sorts of
16
attractions.
lakes connected with each other with beautiful waterfalls, with beautiful nature, gastronomy around it. You should just visit it, and I invite your audience to visit it.
And the beaches are marvelous in the islands, and not only in the islands, but there are so many different beaches and nice beaches in the north, in the Eastern Peninsula. It's very nice also. One thing I found interesting, you have many nudist resorts and beaches. It's very open.
It's very open. It's a tradition.
It's a tradition.
Nature is nature.
Yes. And talking about now economy, could you, we are in the end of the program, could you, in a few words, talk about your economy so that people can understand a little bit about it?
Yes. Macroeconomic figures are very good. We got out of the crisis that ran all over the world 10 years ago. Now, for consecutive 5 years or so, we have a steady growth, in average about 3% a year, which is very good. The external debt is sinking, and it will very soon be under the limit foreseen by the European Union rules. In budget we have mostly sufficit, not deficit anymore. So I think it runs smoothly, it runs well. Tourism is extremely important. Industry is traditionally strong.
Now we're starting a good relationship between Brazil and Croatia, right?
The relationship is traditionally always good and friendly.
Yes.
But we always complain economically. We can do much more.
We can do better.
We can do much more, and that is part of my duties and task here.
But I see more people are getting interested in visiting Croatia because people that go there find it so beautiful that now more and more people are getting interested. And you have so much to offer. I was remembering now the gingerbread that is very traditional. In Brazil, we appreciate gingerbread, but what's created there is something that UNESCO recognizes as a immaterial
heritage.
Yes.
Yes, we have a lot of things that are on UNESCO list of immaterial heritage. We are proud of that, gingerbread being one of them. But it's not only food, it's nature, it's the traditions, it's the songs, music, important in Croatia.
Nice music.
All kinds of heritage, which reflects the richness of the history.
Yes.
The richness of the culture and history. And as I said at the outset, it's always when you don't have your own state.
Yes.
It's always culture and language that preserves you.
And have the lavanda plantation that are beautiful also, right?
It looks beautiful, it smells beautiful.
Yes, great. Well, I think we have to finish this program. We could talk a lot more about so many interesting aspects of your country, but I think we have aroused the curiosity of people to go there and see by themselves.
Last year we had increase of 19% in the arrival of tourists from Brazil.
Wow.
Please keep it, as you said, you will find beautiful country with very open and friendly people. You will feel like home. Do come.
Então, nós estamos chegando ao final do nosso programa, conversando aqui com o embaixador Ranko da Croácia. E fica, então, esse convite para que os brasileiros conheçam um pouco mais desse país tão maravilhoso, tem tecnologias tão fantásticas e tantos atrativos turísticos, né? And I thank you very much, Ranko, for your attention. And we hope now we can do much more together in the future.
Here I am. I'm here and my embassy is always here. Thank you.
Obrigado, então. Até o nosso próximo programa. Fiquem conosco.